I was really taken aback. Despite everyone's bickering and the general mayhem, I still had faith that my loved ones would protect me. Prince Harry's seemingly ordinary day took a dramatic turn. Unexpectedly, he discovered something quite intimate that Prince Philip had left for Archie. A tidal wave of emotions washed over him as soon as the object was shown to him. Harry was so overwhelmed that he cried out in anguish and love. A gift it was not. The meaning, memories, and message it held were passed down from a grandfather to his great-grandson, whom he knew very little. Could you tell me what it is? Come with us as we uncover the significance of this unexpected delivery gesture to Harry. It took a few months after Prince Philip's death for his belongings to be sifted and made ready to be shared with family members. The majority of these things had been well preserved, stored in designated areas where he had previously instructed their preservation. Every item was marked for someone he cared about, and he had made sure everything was in its place. No matter how plain or worn they appeared, many of his belongings held sentimental value. They served as a poignant reminder of the life he had led, the decisions he had made, and the ones he had loved. There was a separate shipment for Prince Harry among these things. It had been packaged with meticulous attention to detail, wrapped snugly, and marked with his name. Harry wasn't anticipating the delivery when it finally arrived. It came at a time when he was struggling with a lot of inner turmoil. He had grown estranged from the other members of the royal family. Things hadn't been easy for him, and there had been changes. However, as soon as he received the item, it appeared as though his surroundings diminished. Despite its small size, the package seemed somewhat substantial. Holding the box in his hands, he paused to catch his breath before releasing it. As one by one, Harry carefully raised the lid and removed the contents. An ancient photo, delicately set in a plain frame, was the first item he removed. It depicted a family moment with Prince Philip and a younger Harry giggling. It was an old photo. Its obvious significance, the close relationship between grandpa and grandson, led to its selection. As Harry held it tenderly and gazed at it, a flood of memories washed over him. Afterwards, he extracted a little wooden crate from the bundle. It opened with a gentle click and had a smooth surface. He discovered small artifacts that had belonged to Prince Philip within. An antique pair of cufflinks, worn but otherwise in good condition, was present. Philip would often bring this pocket-knife on his leisurely strolls around the estate. These fragments of his past were more than just that, artifacts. They were associated with one's character and level of experience. Although the contents weren't particularly significant monetarily, they held great sentimental value. They were preserved with affection and remembrance. A handwritten letter was concealed at the base of the package. Although brief, the text was easy to understand. Someone had clearly spent considerable time thinking about and then putting into writing all that needed to be stated. According to the note, Prince Philip himself selected the contents of the package. It was intended for Archie to receive some of them. The passage halted Harry. That was unexpected. Even at this early age, his youngster was too little to comprehend what was happening. Nevertheless, Prince Philip had planned ahead. Archie had crossed his mind. Something he had intended to pass on was scrapped. Harry began to piece together the significance of the contents of the box as he reread the note. Careful consideration has gone into selecting each and every component. Some were obviously intended for Harry, while others were meant to be passed on at the appropriate moment. How much effort had been put into it was evident. Even though they no longer lived in close proximity, Philip nevertheless made an effort to consider Archie's future. Sitting with the box by his side, Harry carefully examined each item one more. He was careful not to hurry. With a firm grip, he examined them closely and soaked up every detail. Memories, wisdom, and cherished family heirlooms were all contained within the box. Upon receiving it, Harry paused and contemplated profoundly. It prompted him to reflect on his life thus far and to plan for the future. With great care, he returned each item to its original container. He was careful not to omit anything or lose track of its origin. He felt a strong need to safeguard the box. When Archie was old enough to comprehend its significance, he hoped he could give it to him. That day would arrive at a later time. Harry decided for the time being to keep it secure. Harry continued to spend the day by himself with the box. No one received his call. Regarding that, he remained silent. Sitting motionless, he allowed the emotions to take hold. He reflected on the last years of Prince Philip's reign and how, even at a distance, he had thought of Archie. Not just words, but deeds. Harry needed something to cling to, and that little parcel came just in time. Even though it appeared out of nowhere, it touched down deliberately. Some ties remain even when individuals distance themselves. This served as a poignant reminder of that. Years and words buried them, and they waited for the perfect time to emerge. For Archie, a private letter. After receiving the package, Prince Harry meticulously examined all of its contents. There was more than meets the eye. It appeared as though every part contained a memory. A small book came tumbling out of the box as he lifted it, revealing a folded envelope. Its placement was deliberate, though subtle, so as not to attract unnecessary attention. Carefully put away, it had been concealed slightly. As soon as Harry took it in his hands, the lettering on the front caught his eye. Somewhat recognizable. The envelope bore a singular name, Archie, and was addressed in a straightforward manner. For some time, Harry refrained from opening it. Following a second examination of the penmanship, he flipped the envelope over in his hands. The paper has the robust feel of high-priority correspondence. Neither a stamp nor a date appeared. There was no indication of the date of writing. Nonetheless, it was obvious that this was penned before to Prince Philip's demise. After Harry and Meghan moved away, he still made an effort to write something for Archie, even though they rarely spent time together. Harry took his time opening the envelope after sitting with it for a while. With care, he removed the one sheet of paper from inside and unfolded it. He began reading at the very beginning. Instead of being typed, the letter was handwritten. Although the ink had slightly faded, each phrase could still be made out. It was brief and written in an unassuming personal style. It was neither lengthy nor flowery. Direct language was employed by Prince Philip. Big language and lengthy stories weren't there. Since it was genuine, it took on an even more intimate quality. Reading it aloud twice was Harry's strategy. Word for word, emotions he hadn't faced in a long time welled up. He could tell that Archie had been on Prince Philip's mind. He had planned ahead when he penned the letter. He wished for Archie to know his roots, the type of individuals who made up his family, and the importance of being strong from an early age. No specific directions or orders were provided by the letter. Basically, it was only a great-grandfather's want to pass on some of his sentiments and ideas. The letter's composition and writing style were really emotional. No effort was made by Prince Philip to sound royal. Avoiding an overly stuffy tone was his goal. He simply read the letter aloud, as if he were a grandfather trying to leave a lasting impression on a grandson after all these years. Family, perseverance, and standing firm in the face of adversity were themes throughout the letter. Someone with a lot of life experience, who was private about their feelings yet took the time to record what was important, had written the letter. Upon returning to the letter for a third reading, Harry found himself pausing at specific lines. While he avoided mentioning Archie's parents by name, Prince Philip did make passing references to them in several places. He advocated for the symbiotic relationship between strength and kindness in his writings. Problems would arise in life, and he didn't try to deny it. Although he didn't promise that Archie would have it easy all the time, he did stress the need of Archie being honest when faced with challenges. Harry felt a change occur within him as he read those words. Resting his hands on the letter, he sat back and refused to release them. After refolding the letter, Harry carefully placed it back inside the envelope. He held on to it. As his mind wandered from the past to the present, he simply held it and glanced around the room. He considered Archie, who was far too young to comprehend or read it at the moment, but who would be prepared for it in due time. It was then that Harry decided he would keep the letter until that fateful day. He would guarantee its security, away from harm or destruction. This wasn't your average letter. Written by Prince Philip himself, it was a personal record of his family's history. It became increasingly clear to Harry how unusual that was the more he pondered it. Words like these couldn't be duplicated. They had originally belonged to a single parent and were intended for a single child. That was what set them apart from the rest of the items in the box. This letter was already a part of Archie's tale, even though he couldn't grasp it yet. It would eventually change his perspective on his great-grandfather. Because of this, he would feel closer to someone he had little in common with. Harry got up from his seat after a long period of inactivity. With care, he enveloped the letter in a delicate fabric and placed it in a concealed drawer. He had no doubt that he would retrieve it at a later date, perhaps read it again before presenting it to Archie. But for the time being, it had to remain secure. He remained absorbed in contemplation for a few additional minutes after closing the drawer. Something was accomplished by the letter that isn't always possible with spoken language. It struck a chord with Harry and offered him something genuine to cling to. Although it did not alter the past, it did provide fresh significance to what lies ahead. Advice from the wise. Reading the letter aloud several times allowed Prince Harry to ponder its contents more thoroughly. He was careful not to hurry. He was leisurely. Although written in a fairly straightforward manner, every syllable appeared to convey a powerful message. Prince Philip had refrained from using flowery language. The way individuals speak when they want to communicate something significant was just captured in his writing. It wasn't as if the letter had been rushed through. It seemed quite deliberate and heartfelt, as if he had planned it out in great detail. There were no directives or responsibilities outlined in the text. The topic was unrelated to public etiquette or royal customs. Fame and status weren't at stake. It was a life story. Remaining resilient in the face of adversity was the central theme. The key was to be courteous to other people. Maintaining your dignity in the face of sarcasm was the theme. A key theme was perseverance in the face of adversity. After enduring hardships such as war, family strife, and loss, Prince Philip emerged victorious. He had witnessed life from all angles, things he managed to cram into only a few of paragraphs. Harry had gone over a certain section several times. A key theme was learning from one's errors and moving on. His heart sank at that part. He reflected on the way his own life had taken a different path. He was no longer engaged in royal tasks, distinguished nobility. Those are my loved ones. There you have my extended family. I left the institution because, ultimately, it was the right thing to do. I stayed there in 2020. He had begun a fresh chapter in his life after relocating across the globe with Meghan. Even those closest to him couldn't help but misunderstand and criticize him. However, he felt noticed for the first time in a long time when reading those phrases. It seems as though Prince Philip had a deeper understanding than he had revealed. Kindness was the subject of an additional line. Being kind does not imply being weak, as Prince Philip had said. The way you handle other people when you're exhausted, furious, or wounded is frequently a reflection of your true strength, he had said. It stayed with Harry. It brought up memories of his attempts to bring Archie up. He and Meghan's dream of raising their baby in an honest and loving home has always been a reality. Those words in the letter encouraged Harry to pursue that notion even more. In another section, Prince Philip emphasized the need of being truthful with oneself. No matter what, he said in his writing, one should always tell the truth to themselves. That occupied Harry's mind for quite some time. That was a very intimate message. He recalled instances when he had attempted to conform to a lifestyle that didn't resonate with him. For a long time, he felt pressure from all sides as he tried to meet people's high expectations. However, he had decided to withdraw at the last minute. Although it had not been an easy thing to do, seeing those words gave him confidence in his decision. Someone who had persevered through adversity and found wisdom in their message. This letter revealed a new side of Prince Philip, who had not previously been so forthcoming with his feelings. One side is gentler and more contemplative. It revealed that he had been observing in the background, taking note of details and planning ahead. Remembering that made Harry reflect on his own paternal responsibilities, and he clung to the idea. He couldn't help but ponder the type of letters he could pen for Archie in the future. It prompted him to consider the type of example he wanted to establish. Throughout the day, Harry couldn't help but reread the letter. With each reading, he picked up on something fresh, a word that struck a chord more strongly, or a phrase that became clearer. It dawned on him that the letter would be read more than once by Archie. At various points throughout his life, he could rely on it. When he was confused, it could point the way. When things went wrong, it might console him. It might bring to mind his ancestors, who were concerned even if they didn't always express it directly. The moment Harry made up his mind, he would return the letter at the appointed hour. Not right now, when Archie is too little to comprehend, but when he's old enough to read it on his own. Up to that point, Harry would safeguard it. Just like one would protect a priceless possession, he would keep it safe. This was meaningful to him, not only because it was from Prince Philip, but also because of the words chosen and the emotion evoked. Something about the letter's touching message had altered Harry's perspective. It wasn't a panacea. Although it did not completely remove the past, it did provide him a clearer vision. As a result, he felt a stronger bond to his heritage. Something about that served as a reminder to him that no matter how bad things go, there are always things that keep families united. Among such items was this letter. Harry returned the letter to its envelope after reading it again that night while he sat alone. After folding it, he carefully reinserted it into the drawer and closed it. Knowing that Archie would inherit it and the man's story when he was old enough, he planned to do just that. Someone whose life had been richly lived and whose legacy included not only stories, but also words that may guide others, treasured by many for many years. As Prince Harry painstakingly sorted through the remaining contents of the box, he uncovered an additional object concealed under a folded piece of cloth. Encased in a delicate leather pouch, it was diminutive in size. With caution, he took it up and turned it over in his hands. The leather appeared worn but in good condition, as though someone had taken pains to prevent it from deteriorating. He removed an item that appeared to be about the size of a pocket, encased in a thin covering of velvet, from the pouch. Upon opening it, he discovered a timepiece. The concept was old. It lacked luster and glimmer, yet exuded an enduring charm. The watch remained functional despite some minor wear and tear on the metal and a few scuffs on the glass. Harry took a seat and examined it. As he flipped it over, he noticed a name etched into the reverse. It wasn't Prince Philip's name, but someone else's, probably an old relative. It was at that moment that he understood this wasn't merely a watch for Prince Philip. Someone had gotten it before him. That was its inherited legacy, passing down through the years till it finally reached him. Plus, Harry wasn't the intended recipient. It should have gone to Archie. Harry paused with that thinking. He remained still for some time. He did nothing more than stare at the timepiece, attempting to imagine the hands that had held it before him. Countless hands had probably passed it along, from pockets to nightstands, and from lengthy walks in the pockets of others. Each morning before venturing out into the world and relax afterwards. For years, if not decades, it had been an integral part of someone's routine, and somehow it had managed to endure. With care, he set the watch on the tabletop before him and gazed at it. Recalling a memory from his childhood, he had seen it once before. Its significance was lost on him at the time. Nothing out of the ordinary had occurred to him. Now that what had transpired, though, the watch appeared altered. There was more to it than meets the eye. It was deeply meaningful, as is typical of things steeped in tradition and history. Across generations, it brought individuals together through shared ancestry. Once more, he took up the watch and flipped open the back. There was a folded message inside, almost too little to be noticed. With great care, he removed it and carefully opened it. The paper was delicate and bore the signature of Prince Philip. In its brief few sentences, it described the watch's owner as someone who had instilled in him the value of punctuality and self-control. The individual had gifted him the watch when he was a young man, and now he wanted to present it to Archie. That was about all the information provided by the note. It said what needed to be conveyed without going into lengthy tales. As Harry carefully folded the paper and placed it back inside the watch, he could feel the significance of the present. No one had gone to a store to select this treasure. Its purpose was not to make an impression. Because of its unique history and the hardships it had endured, it remained in the family for a long time. It had weathered battles, journeys, relocations, and changes in family. Even though the recipient's child was too little to wear it, it had now made its way to another member of the family. The connection between the past and the future was palpable as Harry clutched the watch. Its significance and meaning were clear to him. Harry pondered the inner workings of traditions. Not everything needs to be verbal or written down. The things that individuals leave behind can sometimes contain them. Meaning may be found in the smallest of things, like this watch. No amount of words can express what it can. What lies within may be revealed only as the dust settles. Indeed, that was accomplished by this watch. The story has made its way through the generations unspoken. It had finally made it to Archie. He decided to wait until Archie was prepared before letting it loose. It would be saved till when the moment was perfect. As Prince Philip had wished, it would remain safeguarded. Harry eventually located a container in his drawer, carefully placed the watch inside, and then wrapped it in the identical velvet fabric. After sealing the box, he set it in a secure, out-of-the-way spot. Harry pondered the meaning of passing on possessions later that night, as he sat alone. Recollections of his own upbringing flooded back to him. Observing Prince Philip as he winds clocks, fixes little things, and wears the same watch on his travels. These tiny images returned with a resounding clarity. He refrained from inquiring about their backstories at the time. Those tales, though, came to him independently. The fact that Prince Philip had considered Archie before he could walk or talk was the most striking thing. He had planned ahead, considered his future, and decided on a thoughtful, personalized present for him. Something genuine rather than something showy or costly. It was something that had previously endured. Prior to stowing the box, Harry gave it one more glance. The gift had deep significance, and he was grateful for it. The memory would remain with him, and he had a feeling it would provide Archie a sense of belonging to his ancestors. Harry had a nervous breakdown. Prince Harry sat quietly in the room for a moment after returning the artifact to its container. Low light and a stifling atmosphere pervaded the room. He was caught off guard by how the day unfolded. He had intended to merely sort everything and store it. Now, though, I felt something was off. All of the pieces, the letter, the watch, and the memories, had resurfaced emotions he had repressed for months. As a coping mechanism, he started to make his way around the room. He retrieved objects and placed them back on the table. Nothing drew his attention as he searched for something to concentrate on. After that, he massaged his eyes and sat down. He made an effort to suppress his feelings, but they eventually surfaced. Over the last many years, he had experienced a great deal of transformation. He had abandoned the life he had known from the moment he was born. He had begun anew in another nation. It was his hope that he might provide a better way for his loved ones. All the pent-up emotions, nevertheless, began to leak out at this same instant. He couldn't shake the words of the letter. He couldn't shake the impression that Prince Philip was with him, even after his death. And the sight of the ancient watch lingered in his thoughts. The recollections started flowing in as he paced. Recalling their last encounter, he reflected about Prince Philip. Those brief exchanges between them lingered in his mind, as did the older man's expression as he gazed at him. Running into rooms where Prince Philip sat reading or walked behind him at public events were incidents he remembered from his boyhood. The recollections flooded back, one by one, and this time they were more acute than normal. All of a sudden, Harry halted his progress. With both hands covering his face, he slumped against the wall. Tears began to fall, gently at first, and then with increased intensity. It was clear that he had no intention of intervening. He should have spoken up sooner. Tears continued to flow as he allowed himself to cry. They originated from remorse, loss, and grief. From a combination of memories that were simultaneously comforting and terrible. He sank to the floor and leaned against the wall to sit. He leaned forward with his head lowered and his arms folded over his knees. He remained motionless for some while, allowing his emotions to flow freely. His sobbing was muted. Not only that, he was completely silent. Tears, however, continued unabated. As he breathed in and out, his shoulders loosened slightly and his chest tightened. It had to do with more than merely Prince Philip. It dealt with all the weight he had been bearing for a long time. The growing gulf between him and his royal family was something he pondered. Everything that had gone wrong, everything that had been. Spoken but never meant, and the anguish of leaving it all raced through his mind. Additionally, he reflected about his mother and the hardships she had endured. Everything seemed to be piling up, and suddenly it was all coming tumbling down on him. Sitting there, he kept the room silent. No one entered, and no one noticed him. No one else needed to see this meltdown. After bottling things up for far too long, he was now releasing them in the most effective way possible. The sobbing finally subsided after what felt like an eternity. Anxiety had set in, but he also felt lighter in his body. After wiping his face, he rested his head on the wall. Breathing deeply, he fixed his gaze on the ceiling. Although he was still not well, a part of him had dissolved. I can draw on my past experiences and the knowledge I've gained from the toolbox. It unquestionably simplified things. At that moment, he realized how significant that letter was, not only to Archie, but to him as well. Taking a seat beside the window, he gazed out into the darkness. Both the outer world and the house he was in seemed to have a hushed stillness. He lingered there for some time, allowing the outdoor air to caress his face. It gave him a sense of stability. Returning to the tiny table, he eventually retrieved the velvet sack. He kept it in his hands for some time, before carefully setting it down. He closed his eyes and relaxed back on the chair. Though his forehead throbbed and his cheeks felt damp, he refrained from attempting to dry them off. He did nothing more than sit there and relax, taking his time to recover. A sigh escaped his lips. All that had transpired had already occurred to him. It wasn't a moment he had anticipated or desired for anybody else to witness, but it was essential in his progress. He was strong enough to break down. That proved he was a person. It was a sign that he had finally shed some of the baggage he had been carrying. There was no need for him to elaborate. It was unnecessary for him to bring it up. He needed just to sense it. Before Harry turned in for the night, he put a picture of Archie on the nightstand. He hoped that his son would one day be able to see the photo of the boy they were meant for with his great-grandfather's words. Rebuilding damaged bridges, he gently stepped away, closing the drawer and turning off the light. He knew something had changed inside him. Following that emotionally taxing night, Prince Harry awoke early the following day, his thoughts still clouded. He was very under-rested. The letter, the watch, and all the memories they evoked from his past continued to spin in his head. He cautiously made his way through the home, remaining silent throughout. Megan saw that he wasn't acting normally. Few queries were asked by her. All she did was give him room, allowing him to process his pent-up feelings at his own rate. Harry went outside to the backyard later in the day to catch some fresh air. Perched on the steps, he retrieved his phone and perused old texts. The name of his brother William was the one that caught his finger. He hadn't made contact for some time. Over the years, the distance between them had widened. So much had transpired since they were once close. But Harry still felt compelled to convey a message right then. It is brief. He merely needed to express his profound emotion at reading anything their grandfather had written. Not long after his phone lighted up, he received a response from William, which caught him off guard. He didn't respond with any serious or official language. A little demonstration of comprehension. It was uncomplicated. Harry hesitated. It felt like they were on the same side for the first time in a long time. Once again, it was as if they were brothers. For a fleeting second, at least. The point of the communication wasn't to resolve any issues. It didn't delve into historical events. All it did was meet Harry where he was, offering him encouragement without passing judgment. Feeling lighter, Harry received that little message. He then elaborated briefly on the watch that Prince Philip had given to Archie in his reply. William reiterated his recollection of the watch. It was a cherished heirloom that belonged to their grandfather. Even he had seen it in his youth. For once, it wasn't as if they were on separate roads. The recollection was something they both had. It was as if they had inadvertently moved closer to one another. An item was delivered to Harry's house the following day. Carefully wrapped, it was little. A tag bearing Harry's name was all that was present. No note was included. Inside was a framed photo, which he discovered upon opening it. It was a vintage photo of Prince Philip, who was cradling the shoulders of little William. And Harry smiled softly. Clearly shot on a private family vacation years ago, the photo bore no signs of modern editing. Years had passed since Harry
last laid eyes on that picture. It was sent to him after having been stashed away at Kensington Palace. As the day progressed, Harry also received a message from Kate. To see how Meghan and her family were doing, she sent a brief message. To express the family's concern, she brought up the fact that William had informed her of the heirloom's letter. Even though it was brief, the chat seemed friendly. After graciously acknowledging Kate's letter, Meghan kindly responded. It didn't seem like much at first glance, but it was actually quite significant. Harry experienced a change in his surroundings for the first time in quite some time. Archie was placed in Harry's lap when he sat down that night. He grinned broadly as he handed Archie the photo and asked him to identify the individuals in it. His curiosity got the best of him, albeit he had no idea who they were. Harry provided just the right amount of information, keeping things brief for now. He preferred to ease Archie into these stories gradually rather than force him to do them all at once. His son touched the picture frame and he watched him laugh. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Harry felt a calmness wash over him. Harry might have explained the photo without a note. Its origin was obvious to him. William was trying to get in touch with someone. Plus, it was far more meaningful than any text could have been. He was slow to reply. His response was a message of gratitude, which he did not respond to for several days. He made no effort to bring up past anecdotes. In plain English, he conveyed all that was necessary. It was sufficient. William and Kate's encouragement hadn't solved all the problems. Neither the distance nor the problems between them had been resolved. However, it had accomplished a more practical task. Despite the distance that had grown up over the years, it proved that family could still reach out in times of grief. It had demonstrated that despite the discord and suffering, there was still concern. Even though time passed, that moment of encouragement stayed with Harry. The picture was placed on his desk next to the drawer containing the letter from Prince Philip. As he passed by, he couldn't help but reflect on the fact that certain connections persisted despite the many challenges and changes. In their own little ways, the picture, the watch, and the letter had all served as reminders that his family was still with him. Harry informed Meghan about the photo and the notes that night when they sat down together. He could see by her expression that she grasped the significance of his words as she listened with a smile. Little did the boys know the short conversation and Kate's kind note had benefited more than they could have imagined. Although it did not provide a solution, it was an authentic effort. Moreover, that was of paramount importance to Harry, because there were still opportunities to forge modest bridges, despite the fact that life had altered and their paths had diverged. Since I want to win back my father, forgiveness is entirely within the realm of possibility once I reach my limit. It would be great if my brother could return. It only required a single, unassuming action on occasion to set everything in motion. Harry, though, clung tenaciously to the recollection of that one time. The pieces fell into place, and he was able to understand the big picture, the importance of starting a new legacy. Prince Harry began to undergo a personal transformation in the weeks following the arrival of Prince Philip's letter and watch. Initially, he failed to discern it clearly. Life in California continued on as normal, and the days passed. He helped out around the house, spent time with the kids and Meghan, and worked on his own projects. But in his heart, he couldn't help but think about his grandpa and everything that had transpired as a result of those seemingly insignificant but profound presents. He was slow to announce it to the public. It remained near him. He paused for a second every time he passed the drawer where he had kept the envelope and the watch, even though some moments are better kept personal. He would simply stand there, placing his palm on the surface. From time to time, he would pull out the watch once more, if only to admire it. Neither wore it nor wound it. He did nothing more than hold it in his hand and contemplate its origin and future. A seemingly insignificant item prompted him to reflect about his family's hardships, the lengthy history, not to mention the drama and disputes, everything they had done, the responsibilities they had assumed, and the principles that had been handed down from one generation to the next. He realized that there might be a common thread that connected people regardless of the number of detours they took or the decisions they made, something that remained intact regardless of the changes in life. As long as there is blood and love, family will always remain family. Harry reflected on his brotherly bond frequently. Their physical separation didn't happen suddenly. The photo, the message, and the modest gesture from William had stayed with him, even though there were still many things that needed to be said. A sense of hope that things could improve washed over him. Although he didn't anticipate a return to the previous state of affairs, he did see an opportunity to express himself more freely, to communicate and create something fresh, regardless of its appearance. Additionally, he began to give greater consideration to the type of legacy he wished to bestow upon his offspring. After viewing the watch intended for Archie and reading the note that will one day serve as a guide for him, Harry reflected on the things that were truly important to him. The titles, mansions, and public appearances have nothing to do with it. Values were the key. It has to do with one's daily actions, interactions with others, and commitment to values. Harry slowed slower because of the change. He became more self-aware and began to scrutinize his behavior. His actions toward his children, his encouragement of Meghan, and his responsibilities outside the royal family were all on his mind. He preferred not to harbor resentment. He preferred not to always bear the burden of past hurts. Neither he nor his children, nor the relatives he had left behind in the UK, would benefit from it, he knew. As a result, Harry had a conversation with Archie one night. Even if the words didn't hit home with his kid right this second, Harry knew they would eventually find a home in his heart. He aspired to leave a legacy similar to that of Prince Philip. Harry jotted down some notes after that speech. I didn't receive a letter, more akin to a diary post, really. His grandfather's gift, William and Kate's surprising kindness, and the moment he broke down were all detailed in his writing. For the time being, he had no intention of telling anyone about it, but putting it down on paper helped him make sense of his emotions. He was able to see things more clearly after that. Along with the watch and letter, he put the folded sheets in the same drawer. He delicately set them down, as if they were already at home. Harry, too, started to extend his hand more frequently as time went on. Not in major ways, but with brief communications. Without trying to impose anything, he simply wanted to demonstrate that he was willing to start over. It wasn't necessary to rebuild everything at once, but if individuals were prepared to put in the effort, bridges could still be rebuilt. Oh, and he was prepared to give it a go. When Meghan got home, she saw the change. Things were no longer carried by Harry in the same manner. He had grown lighter, softer, and sharper. He grinned slightly wider. He made an effort to be fully present for the kids. There was no external force that caused that change. His perspective on life was transformed after a moment of introspection. Though he cautiously carried the past, Harry maintained his focus on the future. Not in a burdensome manner, but rather one that encouraged his development. He preferred not to make the same mistakes twice. He intended to teach others the things he had learned. Even if Archie and Lilibet's lives differed from those of their ancestors, he hoped they would grow up thinking they were a part of something significant. Therefore, Harry proceeded cautiously, step by step. He took his time with major choices. Little things like listening more, not passing judgment as much, and reaching out instead of withdrawing became his focus. The encouragement from William and Kate and the letter from Prince Philip had brought him back to reality, while the letter from Philip had shown him that change was still within his reach. A sense of hope returned to Harry in that room, something he hadn't had for quite some time. At that moment, it hit him. A person's legacy extends well beyond the material possessions they leave behind. Contributions to the development of others were also emphasized, while they were physically present. I was wondering what you thought about Harry's new insight. From where you are standing, do you think things can only get better? Leave a comment below to share your thoughts. Send a like and a subscribe if you found the video entertaining. Please see the other films displayed on your screen before you leave.